So I'm Ben. It's Bree. Everyone knows her as Bree, and yeah, we've been married for 14 years, almost 15, and we were married in 2010, so it makes it easy. We kind of both grew up in the church, and our journey with Christ started pretty early for us. But there's been a lot of decisions along the way where He has helped us to know where to go and what to do and how to live. So that's kind of what we're going to share. I grew up in a really tight knit family near Camp Douglas in a small church. My grandfather and my dad were both in the leadership of the church, so we were at the church all the time, and grew up learning about Jesus and hearing about him. And one day as a kid, I think I was 5 or 6 years old, I just kind of realized that I needed Jesus to help me, that I had sin in my heart and that there was evil in the world and I needed him to save me. And so I asked him to save me from all that, and he did. And he came into my life, and that's kind of where my relationship with him started.
Yeah, so similarly, my mom came to faith when she was pregnant with my older sister. And so I grew up in a home that was faithful to church, and we knew a lot about the Bible, but there came a time when I was 9 when I was just had to decide for myself. Do I believe what I'm being told? Am I going to decide to walk with Jesus personally and not just kind of be part of this family and what we believe, but am I going to start to talk to Jesus daily and to walk with him? And so that happened for me at a young age as well.
So I was trying to figure out what to do with my life growing up as a teen, and I really started getting into studying scripture actually, kind of in middle school and high school. And I had a pastor that really encouraged me in that direction. So doing that, I kind of enjoyed working with people and being around people. And so I was like, oh, I should be a pastor. I should go into ministry. And so that's kind of led me to go to Bible college and then eventually seminary. And now I'm a hospice chaplain, and that's where I get to encourage people right now. So.
Well, Ben knew what he wanted to do as a teen right away, just that he knew he wanted to go into ministry. My teen years were more tumultuous, I would say. Yeah, what I have up there. Am I going to walk away from this because Christians are occasionally horrible? Um, I I did have some just tumultuous things that happened in my family, and also some church hurt that really, what it came down to is these people who were representing God to me were not acting like I thought Jesus would act. And so I, at that time, I really learned that Jesus is who he says in his word, and he's not always these people who represent him. Um, I also I also had a new awareness of my own sin in that season, because I was able to look at it and say, these sins of other people are affecting me, and how does Jesus deal with sin when he sees it? And I was reading in John 8 when it talks about the woman who was caught in the act of adultery, and they bring her out to Jesus, and they're expecting Jesus to be like, ugh, get her out of my face. That's not how people are supposed to act. I hate that. I hate sin. Get away from me. But he looks to the crowd and he says, where let those who have no sin cast the first stone. And no one can cast a stone because we're all sinful. And Jesus says, go and sin no more. He chose compassion and kindness in the face of sin. And so in that moment, God just kind of reminded me, we're all sinful. We're all we all need compassion. And so if Christ can choose compassion for me, I can choose compassion for others. But trying to work through those deep hurts, I met Ben. Ben wanted to be a pastor, and even in college, between the two of us, just things happened, and I had placed Ben on this pedestal, and he let me down. I was shocked. I had really expected him to just be everything that I ever wanted and put him in the place of God, and expected him to never fail, and we all do. And so I was really struggling with, do I want to marry a pastor? Is this what Christians are? I don't know if I want to do this. But God brought both of us to a place of forgiveness, and spoiler alert, we did end up getting married. I did marry a pastor in the making. And so in July 2010, we got married. And then our first year, we worked in a church in Wisconsin Rapids, and it was so healing for me. And it's so fun to look back over our lives at how God did offer these different times of healing. Because before we got married, I lived with the pastor's family, and I was able to see him talking to us about marriage and just living it at home. I had not seen such genuine faith. What he was saying on Sunday morning, and his wife, like their whole family, I was able to see that really lived out, and I was like, okay, that's awesome. This can be true. Um, and so that was a really wonderful time of healing, and I'm so thankful that Jesus chose that time to show me that. I also ended up working at Subway with a teaching degree, but Subway's the only place that would hire me. So here I am as a sandwich artist, and I worked with all of my coworkers had different religions and backgrounds. It was such an interesting, like, smattering of religions, and really in a way I had never seen before. I was able to see how Jesus was really the answer to all of the searching that I saw them doing, all of the hurt and the missing pieces that they were talking about. I just saw Jesus is the answer to Jesus is the answer to all of these things. And in my own life too, it became much more real than it did as a little. I was in a very, like, a bubble kind of as a kid. I went to a small Christian school, small Christian college, and it was just, out there in the real world making sandwiches. I was I was able to see how God really is the answer to all of these things. So we lived for a year in Pennsylvania. We lived for a year in Wisconsin Rapids, and then we moved to Pennsylvania.
Yeah, we moved to Pennsylvania so I could go to seminary, and so did that for 3 years, and then was looking for a job, as a pastor here in Wisconsin. Couldn't find anything, and then a friend connected me to a great church with a great group of people, and I got to serve there for 5 years. We were there 7 or 8 years total as the children's pastor, and so that hopefully explains the cowboy situation in the lower left corner there. I was the children's pastor, and so I was helping organize all the kids' stuff and doing all that. And it was a great time. It was so fun. Our kids loved it there, and we had a blast, learned so much. But God had a lot of stuff to teach us, too, during that time. And so just to kind of sum it all up, there were kind of three areas as we talked through it that God was really teaching us about. One was family. Sure, you learned all this stuff in school, but look, now you got kids, and it's stressful, and there's a lot to do. And now what? Like, does what we learned about Christ really work? And so he was teaching us. My family was very tradition oriented. We have so many traditions, and now I'm 1,000 miles away from them, and I have a family, and not going to go over to First Sowing on the Red if we're 1,000 miles away. And so we had to figure it out. We had to figure out, what does it mean to follow Christ here with our family? What does that mean for us? And so we had to figure that out. We had stuff that we were working through in our marriage. Pastoring is a stressful job. So pray for Aaron and Sydney when you think about it. It's never done. The work is never done. There's always more to do, and you can always take it home. And so working through that, I was not super good at that and not super good at handling that stress. And it came out in a lot of frustration. It came out in a lot of hurt for her, frustration for me. And we had to choose, are we going to go Jesus' way and choose each other day by day, or are we going to give up? Are we going to live our separate lives, or are we going to try and do this together? And so, we haven't figured all this out, but I think God really helped us during that time to take some steps there. And then just in our own personal well-being, like, how do we live well? Does Jesus want me to be working all the time, nonstop? Like, is that what he's asking? Or maybe there's a different way that is more peace-filled and more restful and more joyful in him. And so that's been a part of our journey for sure, and he's helped us make those decisions.
Yeah, as I look back on that time, it's true what he's saying. The busyness and the just the fullness of having a family and Ben doing full-time work. I was teaching full-time some of our time in Pennsylvania, others times just raising like young kids. We both realized that our stress triggers, our stress responses are not healthy. We, for me, it came out in anger a lot, and I realized the quotation that always comes to my mind is that I sat with my anger long enough to find her name was grief or sadness. And so for me, I came up against a wall where I couldn't just do right because it's right. Just keep doing right because it's right, do the right thing. I couldn't choose that without figuring out why why am I responding this way? Why is it so hard to choose what is right? And so the space from from here and from some of the hurts that happened when I was younger was so helpful for me because I was able to find some great biblical counselors and to just dig into um, you know in Jesus doesn't have condemnation for us. He's not just trying to get us to do right. Like he really does hold us in our sadness, and he really does. There's so much kindness to be found in the Bible, and I just needed to believe him and kind of learn who he was for real. What does the Bible really say about how Jesus treats us? So that time for me I mean, Pennsylvania was wonderful. Don't get us wrong, but I really, as a result to the stress and just both of our triggers and hurting each other, like even the pastor and his wife, were like just fighting. And are we going to choose each other? Are we going to fight for our marriage instead of just fighting with each other? And so that time for me was really seeing who Jesus really is and how he offers us help in the Bible really do help. And he is kind and wants to walk along with us in our heaviness, and I'm so thankful for that time. So we kind of wrapped up our time in Pennsylvania, and God led us back here for family, but also we kind of came to a spot where we needed to say our life is too full for us to make healthy decisions. How can we pause and start over, kind of?
Yeah, I mean, all of our family was in Wisconsin. Our kids were like getting older, and we wanted them to know their family. And so we moved back a year and a half ago, and have just been spending time together with our families and as a family, and taking a step back from the busyness and seeking Christ in the calm, as much as we can grab a hold of it. And it's still a journey. It's still a journey. He's still there. He's still leading us step by step, and it's very sweet and good, and sometimes not clear, but that's okay because he's there for us. So yeah, super thankful that we got to share with you guys